The galaxy was old, older than any one race could remember. It stretched endlessly in every direction, filled with stars that burned like tiny lanterns in the dark. Some stars carried life, some carried only silence. And in one corner of this endless sea, a small, gentle people lived, a people called the Illyrians. The Illyrians were not warriors. They had never been. Their worlds were filled with soft music, glowing gardens and libraries that carried the wisdom of centuries. They were known as singers, dreamers, artists. Other races often came to them not for trade or war, but for beauty, for the chance to walk through crystal forests or hear a song that could make even the hardest heart weep. But peace had made them weak. When the Cracks' dominion came, it was not a fair battle. The Cracks were conquerors. Their ships filled the skies like black clouds before a storm. Their soldiers descended like locusts armed with blades and fire. Where they marched, cities fell. Where they landed, people screamed. The Cracks did not come for trade. They did not come for friendship. They came for chains. The Illyrians tried to resist, but their fleets were small. Their soldiers were few. They had never built weapons to match those of warlike empires. Their defense collapsed in days. Villages burned, towers crumbled, and their skies turned red. So the Illyrians did the only thing left to them. They prayed. They gathered in their shattered halls, their voices trembling, and built a signal, an old beacon meant for diplomacy, never for war. They pointed it to the stars and poured their hearts into it. To anyone who hears us, the message began, voice breaking with sorrow. We are the Illyrians. Our world is burning. Our children are dying. The Cracks show no mercy, please. Please, if there is any kindness in the galaxy, help us. The signal went out faster than light, racing through the void. The Illyrians waited, but time passed and no one came. World after world ignored their call. Some were too far, some too afraid. Others whispered that the Illyrians were already lost and that to help them was to invite the wrath of the Cracks' dominion. One by one, the voices of the stars fell silent. Hope began to fade. Families hid in caves, clutching their children as Cracks patrols searched above. Cities grew dark, their lights extinguished, their music gone. Even the strongest among the Illyrians began to whisper that maybe this was the end. Then, the signal reached a world many had tried to forget. A world the galaxy called a death world. That world was Earth. To most, Earth was a cursed place. The archives of alien races spoke of it with fear and disbelief. A world where storms tore apart continents, where beasts stalked the land with fangs and poison, where sickness and hunger shaped every generation. A world where survival was not given, it had to be fought for every single day. From that crucible, humanity had risen. The message of the Illyrians reached Earth's deep space listening posts. It was translated, recorded, and sent across human fleets. Some listened with silence. Some clenched their fists in anger. And some whispered words that echoed through human history. If they are asking for mercy, then they are asking for us. For humanity knew something the Illyrians did not. Mercy, true mercy, was not soft. It was not gentle. It was not simply turning the other cheek and hoping for kindness. No, real mercy was sharp. It was strong. It stood between the weak and the cruel with teeth bared. The humans prepared their ships. They armed their fleets. They gathered their soldiers, forged from centuries of surviving the harshest world in known space. And when their engines roared to life, the stars trembled. The Illyrians had begged for mercy, and humanity would answer, but not with kindness, not with softness. They would answer as only Deathworlders could. The galaxy had always whispered about Earth. It was a warning passed between traitors, a rumor told in quiet stations, a place most civilizations avoided speaking of. Do not go there, they would say. It is a cursed world, a death world, but what did that mean? To the gentle races, a death world was a nightmare. It meant a planet where life was not kind, where nature was not a friend but an enemy. On many worlds, life grew in balance. Creatures lived without fear of being hunted every moment. Climate stayed mild, and food was easy to find. On Earth, it was different. Earth was violent from the beginning. Mountains split open with fire. Storms raged and drowned entire coasts. Winters froze the weak. Summers burned the careless. And even if one survived the weather, the creatures of Earth waited in the shadows. Creatures with venom, claws, hunger in their eyes. To live on Earth meant to fight for every breath, every day, and humanity. Humanity was shaped by this endless struggle. The galaxy could not understand how a species from such a place could rise. But humans had adapted. They learned to work together, to build tools to fight back against the impossible. Hunger taught them to grow food. Predators taught them to sharpen steel. Storms taught them to build walls and fire. From pain came strength. From danger came courage. So when humans looked at war, they did not tremble. To them, conflict was not something strange. It was something they had always known. That was why, when the cry of the Aelirians reached Earth, humanity did not hesitate. Inside vast war rooms, human leaders played the message again and again. The voice of the Aelirian elder cracked with pain. "Please, we beg you, show mercy." The humans looked at one another. Their history was long and filled with scars. They remembered their own times of desperation, times when no one had come to save them. And they remembered the lesson their world had carved into them. If the strong do not rise, the weak will be destroyed. The decision was made. Humanity would go. Across colonies and fleets the call spread. Old ships scarred from past wars were awakened. New ships, sleek and powerful, prepared for launch. Soldiers packed their weapons and armor, silent but determined. Pilots sharpened their skills. Engineers fueled the great engines. And medics loaded supplies not only for their own, but for those they hoped to save. The galaxy said humanity was dangerous. They said Deathworlders should be left alone. But for the Illyrians, fragile, broken, begging, those very dangers were what they needed. In the deep docks of Earth, massive carriers rose from oceans. Their hulls were black, their engines burning like blue suns. Swarms of smaller ships, fast and hungry, followed them into orbit. The fleets gathered more and more until the darkness of space seemed filled with human fire. They did not go as conquerors. They did not go to claim new territory. They went because someone had asked for help. And when humanity answered a cry for help, they did not answer softly. Among the Aelirians, survivors still whispered prayers in the ruins. They had no idea what was coming. They imagined perhaps a fleet of healers, gentle diplomats, or kind-hearted strangers. They thought mercy would arrive like a warm hand to wipe away their tears. But mercy, as humans understood it, was something else entirely. Mercy was a shield that did not break. Mercy was a sword that cut down cruelty. Mercy was fire, fierce and unyielding, standing between the innocent and the monsters who preyed upon them. The galaxy had called Earth a death world as an insult. But now for the first time that curse would become salvation. The humans were coming. They were coming with their ships, with their soldiers, with their unshakable will. They were coming with eyes hardened by storms and hands scarred by survival. They were coming not to offer soft words, but to stand in front of the helpless and say, "If you want them, you must go through us." The Crack's dominion would soon learn what it meant to face a people born of a world that never forgave weakness. The Illyrians had begged for mercy, and mercy was coming. But mercy was wearing steel. The skies above the Illyrian homeworld were already filled with smoke and fire. The Crack's dominion had spread across the horizon like a dark plague. Their ships hung heavy in orbit, blockading every escape route. On the ground, their soldiers marched through burning streets, dragging the weak into chains, laughing at their terror. The Illyrians hid where they could, in shattered temples, in the ruins of libraries and caves outside the broken cities. They clutched their children close, whispering comfort they did not feel. They had prayed to the stars, but no answer had come. At least not yet. Then something changed. On the edge of the system, distant sensors flickered. Shadows larger than mountains appeared in the void. The Crack's fleet stirred uneasily. At first, they thought it might be another prey world trying to resist. But as the ships drew closer, their hearts darkened. These were not merchant ships. These were not helpless vessels. These were human warships. The first human carrier broke through the void like a beast rising from the deep. Its hull was dark and scarred, its engines blazing with light brighter than the sun. Behind it, more carriers followed. Then came cruisers, destroyers, and swarms of smaller craft that moved like hunting wolves. The humans had not come quietly. They came with thunder. The Cracks laughed at first. They had fought many before. They had crushed many before. What were these Deathworlders to them? A savage race from a cursed planet? They thought victory would be quick, but then the first human fighters struck. They moved with terrifying speed. In seconds, crack ships that had stood firm against dozens of alien fleets were torn open, their armor shredded like paper. Human pilots fought like predators unleashed, cutting through enemy lines, vanishing into the black, then striking again. From orbit, human bombers fell upon Crack's ground bases. Explosions lit the night sky, shaking the earth as fortresses collapsed into dust. Tanks rolled from landing craft, their cannons roaring. Soldiers poured onto the battlefield in disciplined formations, eyes cold and steady. The Illyrians hiding in the ruins looked up in shock. They had expected angels, gentle saviors who would sweep down with soft hands. Instead, they saw something different. They saw war made flesh, and yet, they could not look away. Where the Crack's soldiers had marched proudly, now they fled. Where the Cracks had laughed, now they screamed. Human soldiers advanced without fear, their armor gleaming, their weapons spitting fire. They moved like a storm, swift and merciless. But in that storm, there was something strange. The Illyrians began to notice. A Crack soldier raised a weapon toward a child hiding in the rubble. Before he could fire, a human threw himself in front of her, shielding her with his own body. Another group of humans, after blasting through a barricade, stopped to pull wounded Illyrians from the ruins, giving them water, bandages, and soft words even as bullets screamed around them. It was not the mercy the Illyrians had imagined. It was not soft, not gentle. It was fierce, it was sharp. It was fire that destroyed the enemy, but warmth that sheltered the innocent. For the first time, the Illyrians began to understand. The humans were not saviors of peace. They were guardians of survival. They did not come with empty hands, they came with weapons. They did not whisper promises, they made them true with blood. Above, the Crack's flagship tried to rally. It unleashed volleys of plasma toward the human fleet. But the humans did not retreat. Their warships pressed forward, shields blazing, guns roaring until the enemy's command ship cracked apart and burned like a second sun in the sky. The battle raged for hours. But slowly the truth became clear. The Cracks had met their match. The Illyrians wept in silence as they watched. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy was afraid. For the first time, hope returned, not because the Cracks showed kindness, but because humans had shown fury. When dawn came, the world was scarred, the cities broken, but the sky was no longer filled with only Crack's fire. Now it carried the banners of humanity. The Illyrians whispered to one another in awe. Who are they? What are they? And the answer spread quickly, from trembling lips to every corner of the ruined land. They are Deathworlders, and they have come for us. The Illyrians had never seen such power before. Their world trembled under the weight of war. Buildings shook as human tanks rolled through the broken streets. Skies burned as human bombers struck Crack's fortresses one by one. Where Crack's soldiers had once walked with laughter and arrogance, now they ran in fear, their screams lost in the thunder of battle. Yet the Illyrians did not cheer. Not at first. They watched from the ruins of their homes, from cellars and caves, with wide, frightened eyes. To them, the humans were terrifying. Their faces were hard, their eyes sharp like blades. They wore heavy armor, dark and cold, and carried weapons that spit fire and thunder. Every step they took shook the ground. Every order they gave was loud and commanding. The Illyrians had begged for mercy. Instead, they were witnessing wrath. In one shattered city, a family huddled inside the ruins of a library. The father whispered to his children, "Do not look. Do not make a sound. These beings are not like us." The mother held her daughter close, her tears silent. She remembered the message they had sent into the void. They had prayed for healers, for kindness, for soft hands to stop the cruelty. But what they saw now made them wonder if they had called something even worse. The ground shook again. Outside, human soldiers advanced in formation. Their weapons thundered, their voices roared. Crack's soldiers fell by the dozens. But then, something unexpected happened. A blast hit nearby and part of the library roof collapsed. The Illyrian family cried out as rubble pinned them down. Dust filled the air. The father coughed, trying to push the stones away, but he was too weak. He thought it was the end. Then a shadow fell over them. A giant in dark armor pulled the stones aside with strong hands. The human soldier knelt, his weapon slung across his back, and lifted the crying children in his arms. He gave them water, gently brushing dust from their faces. His voice was deep but soft as he spoke in broken words. Safe now. With us. The Illyrian mother wept. Her tears were not only of fear anymore, but of hope. Across the world, similar stories began to spread. Humans fought with the fury of storms, but in between the battles they did something the Cracks never did. They protected, they fed, they healed. They gave their own rations to starving families. They stood in doorways, refusing to let harm touch those behind them. The Illyrians began to see the truth. Mercy to humans was not weakness. It was not soft words or empty promises. Mercy was a shield. Mercy was the strength to destroy the cruel and still offer kindness to the innocent. But that mercy came with a cost. The humans bled for it. Many fell in the streets, struck down while protecting those they had never known before this day. A soldier carried a wounded Illyrian child out of a collapsing building, only to be crushed by falling debris. Another covered a family with his own body when plasma fire rained down. The Illyrians buried these strangers with trembling hands, whispering prayers of gratitude. They had not asked humanity to die for them, yet humans did it without hesitation. Still, the Illyrians struggled with fear. Some whispered, "What if they turn on us when the Cracks are gone? What if this fury is not only for our enemies, but for us too?" Their fear was natural, for humans carried a fire the galaxy had never seen before. But day by day, act by act, that fear began to turn into something else. Respect, trust, even love. In the end, the Illyrians realized that what they had called upon was not a gentle hand from the stars. They had called upon a storm that destroyed the cruel but shielded the weak beneath its wings. The cost of that storm was great. Cities burned, soldiers fell, and even the humans paid in blood. But because of it, the Illyrians were still alive, and as they looked into the hard eyes of their saviors, they began to understand a lesson the galaxy had long feared to learn. Mercy in the hands of Deathworlders was never soft. It was sharp, fierce, unbreakable. It was mercy that came with fire. The Cracks' dominion had ruled through fear for centuries. Entire civilizations had bent their knees, surrendering without a fight. Worlds had fallen silent beneath the Cracks' flag. They believed no one could stand against them. But now, for the first time, they faced something they could not control. They faced humanity. In the forests, Cracks' patrols marched proudly, their claws clicking against the ground. But the trees whispered with hidden movement. Human soldiers stalked them, silent as shadows. One by one, Cracks' warriors vanished into the darkness, never to return. In the cities, Cracks' commanders tried to fortify strongholds, but human snipers watched from rooftops. Every time a Cracks officer raised his head to shout an order, a single crack echoed and he fell silent forever. In orbit, the Cracks' fleets gathered, their warships bristling with weapons. They tried to push the humans back, tried to hold their control of the skies, but the human navy did not retreat. They struck again and again, tearing holes through Cracks' lines. Battleships that had once terrified the galaxy now burned, falling like meteors into the atmosphere. The Cracks were confused. They had expected humanity to fight like prey, to scatter when pressed, to plead for mercy. Instead, the humans fought like predators, relentless, patient, merciless. Every Cracks fleet sent for reinforcements found itself torn apart. Every attempt at ambush was turned against them. The humans did not simply fight battles, they hunted wars. For the Illyrians, it was both terrifying and beautiful to witness. They stood among the ruins of their cities, watching the night sky turn bright with fire. They had never thought they would cheer at destruction, but each time a Cracks ship exploded, hope swelled in their hearts. Each time human boots advanced through the streets, they felt the weight of fear lift. Still, The war was not without pain. The Illyrians saw human bodies carried from the battlefield, lifeless but honored. They saw soldiers wounded, bloodied, refusing to stop fighting even when barely able to stand. They saw medics working without rest, saving whoever they could, human or Illyrian alike. And slowly the Illyrians began to whisper something new. They are not fighting for themselves, one elder said, tears in his eyes. They are fighting for us. The truth became clear. Humanity was not here for conquest. They were not here to take new land or demand tribute. They were here because someone had called for help. And when humanity answered such a call, they did not come halfway. They came with everything. The Cracks soon realized this as well. Their commander sent frantic messages across the Dominion, begging for more fleets, more soldiers, more weapons. Entire armadas were dispatched to the Illyrian world, but humanity did not flinch. From colonies across the stars, more human warships arrived. From Earth itself, the oldest and most battle-scarred fleets were awakened. Humanity had learned long ago that survival meant standing together. And now they stood together for the Illyrians. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The Cracks threw everything they had into the fight. Planetary bombardments, orbital strikes, endless waves of troops, they unleashed their full might. But for every strike, the humans struck back harder. For every ship destroyed, 2 more arrived. For every soldier lost, the survivors fought with twice the fury. It was not just a battle for land. It was a battle of wills. And the Cracks learned that humanity's will was unbreakable. The Illyrians wept when they saw it. These Deathworlders, who the galaxy had once called monsters, were fighting like guardians. They fought with fire, yes, but it was fire that protected the innocent. They fought with fury, but it was fury directed at cruelty. For the first time, the Cracks' dominion felt something they had never felt before. Not power, not arrogance, not hunger. They felt fear, because when Deathworlders fight for others, they do not stop. The war dragged on for many weeks. The Cracks' dominion fought with desperation, but their strength was fading. Their armies were broken, their fleets shattered. Their warlords, once proud and cruel, now whispered to each other in fear. At last, the survivors of the Cracks began to beg. Across the battlefield, surrender signals lit the skies. Ships turned dark, weapons powered down. On the ground, Crack soldiers dropped their rifles, raising their claws in trembling defeat. The same mouths that had once shouted threats now whispered pleas. Mercy, please mercy. The Illyrians watched in silence. They remembered what the Cracks had done, burned their cities, enslaved their people, crushed their dreams. Now the same monsters who had laughed at their cries for pity were begging for their lives. The Illyrians turned to the humans, afraid of what they might do. Would the humans destroy them? Would they slaughter the helpless without hesitation? The Illyrians had seen the fire in humanity's eyes. They had seen the fury of a death world unleashed. They wondered if that fury could ever be controlled. But what happened next surprised them all. The humans did not raise their guns against the surrendered. They did not burn the Cracks' worlds to ash. They did not erase an entire people, though they had the power to do so. Instead, they shackled the warlords, stripped them of weapons, and freed every slave taken by the Dominion. The Illyrians were shocked. They asked the human commander, "Why do you not destroy them? Why do you let them live after all they have done?" The human's answer was heavy, his voice scarred by battles. "Because mercy is not weakness. Mercy is strength. We will not become the monsters we fight." The Illyrians wept when they heard these words. They had thought mercy meant kindness, soft and gentle, but now they understood. True mercy was not empty forgiveness. It was justice with restraint. It was strength that chose not to crush the helpless. The Cracks did not understand it. Their warlords spat and cursed even in chains, but the rest of the galaxy understood. For the message of what happened spread quickly across the stars. The humans spared them. Travelers whispered in shock. They had every right to destroy the Cracks, and they spared them. But with that mercy came a warning. On the day the war ended, the human fleet broadcast a single message to every Cracks world. "Touch this world again," the voice declared, deep and steady, "and you will never see another dawn." It was not the promise of saints. It was not the peace of philosophers. It was the warning of predators who had chosen for now to put away their claws. The Illyrians gathered in their ruined cities. They mourned the dead, they buried their heroes, and they sang again for the first time in months. Their songs were softer now, sadder but filled with gratitude. For without the humans, they would not be alive to sing at all. Children played again in broken streets, laughing as human soldiers watched with tired smiles. The soldiers gave them rations, shared their water, even showed them how to hold tools and simple weapons. They did not want the Illyrians to remain helpless forever. They wanted them to learn, to grow, to stand strong. It was a new lesson, one the Illyrians would never forget. Mercy without strength was meaningless. To protect kindness, one must be willing to fight. The humans had shown them this truth, and as the cracked survivors were dragged away in chains, the galaxy looked upon humanity with new eyes. They were no longer only Deathworlders. They were no longer only feared. They had become something greater. Guardians with teeth, protectors with fire. The Illyrians had begged for mercy, and they had received it. Not the mercy they had imagined, but the mercy they needed most. Mercy given by the strongest hands in the galaxy. The war was over. The guns were silent, the skies clear of fire, and the screams of battle faded into memory. What remained were ruins, broken families, and endless scars. The Illyrians tried to rebuild. Their cities stood like skeletons, burned towers reaching into the heavens, but inside those ruins, life slowly returned. Farmers planted seeds in the ashes. Children, once hiding in caves, played in the sunlight again. They laughed, even when their homes had no roofs, even when their clothes were patched and torn. Life was stubborn, and it refused to die, and always among them walked the humans. The Illyrians watched them closely, still unsure of what to make of their saviors. The humans were different from every other race they had ever known. They were not delicate like the Illyrians, nor elegant like the Serolith, nor ancient like the Olith. They were hard, scarred, rough in speech and action. But in their eyes burned something no other species carried, an untamed fire. At night, the Illyrians would gather around human soldiers and ask questions. "Why do you fight so fiercely?" One child asked. "Why not run when death is close?" The soldier smiled sadly. "Because if we run, death will find those behind us. Better we face it than the innocent." Another asked, "Were you not afraid when the crack ships filled the sky?" The soldier laughed softly. "Of course we were afraid. Courage is not about having no fear. Courage is choosing to stand anyway." The Illyrians listened, and their respect grew, for in those answers they found not only strength but also truth. Soon the galaxy spoke of it. The stories spread from world to world. "The humans came," they whispered. "They came from a death world, and yet they gave mercy. They fought with fire, but they did not burn everything to ash. The cracks, broken and in chains, spat curses at their captors, but their curses no longer mattered. The galaxy had seen them fall, and it had seen who brought them down. It was not just victory. It was a message. Humanity was not to be trifled with. The humans themselves cared little for glory. They did not carve statues of themselves in the cities they saved. They did not demand worship or tribute. They only gave a warning and left behind lessons. Before the fleets departed, the human commander stood before both his soldiers and the Illyrians. His voice was steady, carrying across the crowd. "Remember this," he said. "We are not your rulers. We are not your saviors. We are only proof that even the weakest voice asking for mercy can be answered, if there are those willing to fight for it." The Illyrians wept as they listened. They would remember those words for generations. When the humans finally returned to their ships, the galaxy watched them go. Some feared them. Some admired them. But none ignored them. For now all knew the truth. Humanity was the fire on the edge of the stars, the predators who could choose to kill but also to protect. And so the galaxy gave them a name. Not monsters. Not saviors. But Deathworlders, the ones who had crawled out of the harshest world imaginable, carrying the strength of storms in their bones, and the weight of mercy in their hands. The Illyrian children grew up telling the story. They spoke of the day their skies burned, the day their cries reached the stars, and the day humanity answered, and always when they told it. They ended with the same words. They asked for mercy, and humanity sent its Deathworlders instead. The story spread farther than any fleet. It became a warning, a promise, and a legend. The weak found hope in it. The cruel felt fear in it, because everyone in the galaxy now understood one truth. When darkness rises, when cruelty spreads, when the helpless beg for pity, there will be humans waiting, with fire in their hearts and steel in their hands, and to those who would harm the innocent, that fire will be the last thing they see.